Happy holidays, folks, and welcome back to December, the holiday event on the channel where I explore the death and downfall of the DCEU films. I'll be uploading a video every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from December 4th through December 28th. I will be going into spoilers as I pick apart these movies, so be wary of that. And if that sounds interesting to you, kick back, relax, grab some snacks, because today we're talking about... I had actually planned on reviewing Blue Beetle when it originally came out. I went out and bought this shirt to wear in the video, but I procrastinated and never actually made it, so it's good that I finally get to talk about it here. And the movie definitely needs some good press given that it didn't do so hot in the box office, but it's a shame because it really did deserve to do well because it's a genuinely fun and heartfelt superhero movie. Yeah, sure, it can be a bit campy and hammy at times with a very mustache-twirling evil villain, but I don't know, I think it really worked. Or maybe I just like bug-themed superheroes because Spider-Man is my second favorite superhero of all time. And on top of that, Blue Beetle is like if you took the personality of Spider-Man, the armor of Iron Man, and the symbiotic relationship of Venom and mixed them all into a blender. I'm not joking, that basically describes what Blue Beetle's character is. So on top of him being a really just cool and interesting character to explore, the movie does a great job of introducing you to him and his family and make you find him loving and endearing. And something that I haven't really seen a lot of people talk about is the fact that Blue Beetle lives in his own city, the way that Batman has Gotham and The Flash a Central City and Superman has Metropolis and so on and so forth. Blue Beetle lives in his own unique city to the DC universe called Palmera City. And it's supposed to be this city where there's this huge divide between the upper class and the lower class, where you have this utopia of a city where everything is all high-tech and futuristic, and then you get to the lower end where all of the lower-income households are, and it's all run down, but it feels like a very homely community where everyone cares about each other. And I really like that. It gives this city a very distinct feel, and it feels like it's his home, his identity for his character to protect. And I absolutely love that. I kind of wish more superhero movies were able to do that, but most superheroes, especially in regards to Marvel, they kind of just live in a city in the real world rather than having their own unique city that they protect. Like, most superheroes in Marvel Comics live and protect New York City. Like, Avengers Tower is located there. Daredevil lives there. Spider-Man lives there. Moon Knight's there. Like, there's a lot of characters that exist within New York City, and it's kind of just like, yeah, I love New York because, like, A, I was born in New York, so it's my home, but also, like, can we go somewhere else that's more unique and special? I would appreciate that, please. So I'm very happy that Blue Beetle has his own unique sci-fi looking futuristic city that's awesome. Like, this shot right here just gives you all the character you need to know about the city, and I find it absolutely fantastic. And while we're on the topic of aesthetics, I want to talk about the amazing Blue Beetle costume. I love the fact that it's all practical. I love the fact that they don't do the stupid thing that a lot of superhero movies do where they have the character constantly taking off the mask because they want to show the actor's face so they can emote better. I'm happy they went, nah, this is a character, when he's in his suit, he's got a full cowl on, and I respect their decision to do that. It is awesome. I love every bit of this suit, from the design looking like it's ripped straight from the comics, from the fact that it feels real because it was a practically made suit. Just everything about it is just incredible to me, and I'm so happy with it. Now that the Vanity Fair is over, let's talk about the story. Blue Beetle honestly doesn't have that much of a complex story. It's about the poor little guy versus the evil rich bad guy. That's really the crux of it. But on a more finer detail, Jaime Reyes is a 22-year-old college graduate who recently comes home to find out that his family has a lot of debt and financial trouble. So he tries to get a job so they can take care of their home and stay where they live, but things aren't working out for him. Despite having his college degree, it's being very difficult for him to find a job, and he ends up having to take a job as a cleaner at the bad guy's house, Victoria Cord. Whilst he's there cleaning her house, he ends up seeing that her niece, Jenny Cord, is confronting her over the evil doings of their company, and Victoria goes to have her bodyguard forcibly escort her out of the premises, and then Jaime steps in to protect her because he's just naturally a good person. This results in Jaime getting fired from his job, as well as his sister who was working with him at the location, and Jenny offers Jaime an interview at Cord Industries, saying she'll be able to find him another job since his chivalry cost him the job that he had at her aunt's place. So the following day, Jaime goes to Cord Industries with his family, embarrassingly yet lovingly cheering him on. He arrives there and he sees Jenny running away carrying a big belly burger box. She hands it to him and tells him not to open it and to regard it with his life. So Jaime ends up leaving, and while he's home with his family, they end up opening the box, and inside of it is the scarab. It attaches itself to Jaime's back, and lo and behold, he becomes the Blue Beetle. Now, backtracking for a second, I need to mention this really quick. This movie does have a lot of elements of racism. It's very much brought up in a campy, over-the-top, schlocky villain way, but for the most part, it is here, and it's very noticeable. Like, when Jaime first walks in to talk to the receptionist, she immediately refers to him as a delivery person and tells him to go to the back, and he's just like, no, I'm not here for that. I actually have an interview. And then he tells her his name is Jaime, and then she's disrespectful and calls him Jamie. I find it weird that this character never gets like comeuppance or anything like that, but I guess in real life things like that don't always work out that way. So it makes sense, but for superhero movie, I would have liked to see this receptionist like get something, like maybe get like water or something spilt on her just for being rude. I don't know, but that's just me. Anyway, back to where I left off. Jaime is now the Blue Beetle. He's connected to the scarab, he's a bit freaked out, and then the scarab turns on and goes, hey, we need to run some system tests, and starts taking Jaime all over the world. Well, not all over the world. It flies him into orbit and then drops him back into Palmyra City, but nevertheless, it's a bit of a crazy experience. He's flying around the city uncontrollably, the suit's reacting on its own, pulling out weapons to protect him and test a bunch of stuff, and he just doesn't know what's going on until he gets dropped back into his family's home, and he immediately blacks out after this whole first ordeal. Once Jaime wakes up, he realizes that all the crazy stuff that just happened was real, and he immediately rushes over to Cord Industries after his family kind of makes jokes and teases him. There's a running joke throughout the series, that story that I don't know about called Maria del Barrio, where it's like a Latina woman ends up being taken out of the like lower income areas by this rich white guy, and they keep making jokes that like Jaime is falling in love with Jenny, who's this rich white girl, so it's like the roles are reversed here, which is kind of funny and cute, especially when you see the family's interaction with it. But nevertheless, Jaime rushes over to find Jenny at Cord Industries. He finds her escaping from the security guards that are trying to catch her, and the two of them flee the scene. They go back to his house, and Jenny explains the backstory of the scarab, and we learn that the scarab is a world-destroying alien device that connects to a host, kind of like the Venom symbiote does in Spider-Man. So Jaime is like, okay, I need to get this thing off of me. Do you know how? And Jenny says that her dad was doing research on it and might have found a way in order to extract it. So they have to break back into Cord Industries to steal her father's wristwatch in order to open up his secret lair, because we learn momentarily that her dad is the original Blue Beetle that existed and was a hero in Palmyra City. So before that happens, they go back to Cord Industries to break inside and steal a watch, which I don't know if this was a budgetary constraint, but like I find it awkward that this super important family heirloom of device is just put on display at like the front desk of Cord Industries, because Victoria doesn't have her own special office. So when they break back into Cord Industries to steal Jenny's dad's watch, it's just at the front desk counter, and I remember it because you see it when Jaime comes in for his interview earlier on. It's just night now and things are lit up differently. But, you know, that's not really a big complaint. It's more of a nitpick, if anything. However, while they're there, the weirdest thing happens. Jaime's looking at a bunch of promotional advertisements for Cord Industries, and he's like, your aunt looked really happier back then. And, like, this is why it feels weird. Like, if this was an office where he was looking at images of her family doing stuff and he saw she was happy in the past, that'd be different. But like, he's looking at a teleprompter. Like, people act and lie in promotions like this. Like, this doesn't really indicate that she used to be a good person, but it's whatever. The truly weird part happens when Jenny starts telling Jaime about her family's history of the company, and she's like, yeah, my aunt and my grandpa built this company together, and when my grandpa died, he gave the entire company to my dad. And Jaime starts to say something, he's like, that sounds, and she cuts him off and goes, sexist. And like, I don't think we should be using the evil racist business lady as the advocate for why we should stop sexism. Cause like, I don't think she's kind of the front runner that you want to use, because like over the course of this movie, she treats people like they're subhuman. She's extremely racist, and she even goes, "Oh yeah, we could sacrifice people as long as it gets me my goals, but I wouldn't sacrifice myself. That's ridiculous." So like, I don't think she's the kind of person you want to really use this for. It felt very unnecessary, like it was forced to be put there, because it's like, you know, in certain movies, the studio does have the creatives put in elements that are more hot topic in order to appeal to a wider audience. So I could very much see if someone was like, hey, you need to like bring up this issue in the movie, and they use this scene for it, because it's very awkward that, again, the evil racist business tycoon is the character that you're talking about, like, you know, hey, sexism is bad. Like, I don't think you should be using her as the example, especially since she's the example for all the things that you shouldn't do throughout the course of the rest of the movie. Like, because when I heard this, it just triggered in the back of my mind, and I was just like, you know, maybe your grandpa wasn't being sexist. Maybe he just thought, should I leave my company to my evil racist daughter or my charitable loving son that wants to give back to people? This is a tough decision. So after that awkward scene is over, Jenny and Jaime get the watch, they go to leave, and then Carapax, aka Omac, shows up and attacks them. The Scarab wraps himself around Jaime, and they get into a fight with the Scarab taking control of Jaime's body. Jenny rushes over, gets Jaime's uncle, Rudy, who had driven them there, and they're all trying to escape. Jaime actually ends up winning this first fight against Omac, but the Scarab wants to kill him, and Jaime says that he isn't a killer and doesn't want to, so the Scarab listens to his will. And something I need to bring up here that I really did like is you can kind of subtly tell that the Scarab is learning to interact with Jaime more based off of who he is, because the first time that it activates, it's speaking fluent English, but the second time when it activates and wraps around him, it says "Hola, Jaime," because Jaime is Latino. So I think that's really cool that as the movie progresses, the Scarab starts to speak more and more Spanish, because Jaime speaks a hybrid of Spanish and English throughout the course of the movie, and it's reacting to him in such a way. I think that's really good. And also, while I'm on the topic of this, I'm disappointed at the fact that the Scarab doesn't talk that much throughout the course of this movie, because the Scarab is supposed to be similar to the Venom symbiote. It has its own thoughts and will and controls, but despite it being like that and having its own personality, it doesn't speak all that often throughout the course of the movie, and it feels very odd because in the final battle, Jaime's mother kind of gives a pep talk to both Jaime and the Scarab named Kajita, and it's off-putting because Kajita doesn't react or say anything during this scene that Jaime can reciprocate to his mother. It's just more like she's talking to both of them because she acknowledges that Kajita is a person that is attached to her son, and I just wish that Kajita was more of a character that interacted with Jaime. I was expecting them to have that kind of Eddie Brock-Venom relationship that we see in the Venom movies and the comics, but it just didn't really act that way in the movie. It stays silent most of the time, which is very disappointing. Anyway, speaking up a bit, Jaime ends up losing the fight after refusing to kill Carapax, but his uncle Rudy shows up, saves him, and then him, Jenny, and Jaime leave, and they go to Ted Kord's house, Jenny's father. They get there, they find out he was the original Blue Beetle. Rudy runs some tests on the Scarab to find out if they can remove it. Jenny and Jaime have a really heartfelt scene where she shares her family backstory and why she admires Jaime because he has a loving family while her home felt very empty for the course of her entire life due to her mother dying when she was very young and her father being obsessed with his work and being Blue Beetle. So she never really felt the same love that Jaime has in his small household, and she really misses and admires that from him. And I thought that was really cool, and they have a bit of like a bonding romantic moment there that sets up the fact that they're going to be romantic partners by the end of the film. So then Rudy comes in, he gives them bad news about the Scarab and that the Scarab can't be removed from Jaime. It has attached itself and it's bonding with him 100%. So if it was removed, it would kill him, and the only way for it to be removed safely is if he dies. So Jaime learns that he's stuck with the Scarab. He's upset for a bit. He goes up to the rooftop, and then while he's up there, his uncle goes up to him, gives him a little pep talk, and then they realize that Victoria Cord sent out a militia to Jaime's house to try and find him. So Jaime suits up with Kajita. He becomes Blue Beetle again, flies over, and then there's this really awesome action set piece where Jaime fights off against all the nameless Cord soldiers, and unfortunately this is the big midpoint of the movie where everything bad happens. So despite the fact that Jaime and Kajita are starting to feel themselves, they're getting better and they're uniting as one, Jaime ends up losing the fight and being captured by Victoria Cord, and through the process of this, his father, who had been established to have health issues, ends up dying in the process, and Jaime can't do anything because he's been imprisoned by Victoria. So now we have two different plot lines going. Jaime being trapped inside of Cord Industries. Well, not the building that you see the rest of the movie. There's like an island off to the middle of nowhere where he gets trapped. And then Jaime's family and Jenny Cord reassembling themselves, getting a bunch of tech from the Blue Beetle lair, and setting off to go save Jaime. And this leads to the massive third act that takes up like a large portion of the movie. They all are at the island now. Jaime's family breaks in to go and save him. Jaime and the Scarab end up unifying as one after Jaime has like a dream sequence talking to his dead father, who tells him that his purpose in life is to be the Blue Beetle, it is to be this hero, and that his purpose was to guide his son on this path. So Jaime accepts his father's words of wisdom as he completely dissipates from his view. Jaime bonds with the Blue Beetle and they become one. But because now that they've perfectly unified and all the stuff that's happened to them throughout the course of their fights and everything, Kajita says she has to reboot. So although we have this heroic moment where Jaime is like, all right, yeah, I'm 100% me, we're unified, let's do this. And then she's like, yeah, nah, you're gonna have to give me a minute, boss. And he's like, oh, damn. Which is a problem because while he was captured, Victoria Cord scanned the Scarab 100% and learned how to activate the OMAC system. So I didn't mention this earlier, but OMAC stands for One Man Army Corps, and it's basically a man-made scarab that attaches to soldiers to give them the same powers that the Blue Beetle suit has. And she could never get it right because she couldn't get the suits to 100% unify with the host that it's attached to until they were able to scan the results off of Jaime and the scarab being together. So now Carapax now has his own man-made scarab that creates a suit and makes him stronger than he was the first time that he fought Jaime. So Jaime escapes, but Carapax is at 100% capacity and he gets scared. Something else that I didn't mention throughout the course of the movie is that there's this character who Victoria Cord refers to as Sanchez throughout the entire film. She's extremely racist to him. He's her scientist that leads all of her divisions, but she never learns his actual name because she's an evil racist white lady. That's her whole thing. So she calls him Sanchez the entire movie, and he's constantly telling her his name isn't Sanchez, and she wants Carapax to kill Jaime in this scene, and he eventually finally snaps. He's like, no, I'm not going to let this kid die. So he opens up the blast door so Jaime can escape. He locks it behind him, destroys the panel, and he turns to Victoria Cord, and he exposits his whole real name.
My name is not Sanchez Pendeja! It's Jose Francisco Morales Rivera de la Cruz!
And I'm not gonna lie, I know this is supposed to be like an empowering moment, but it kind of just reminded me of this scene from The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody.
No one calls Esteban Julio Ricardo Montoya de Rosa Ramirez Atif.
Hey, listen, it's what I felt when I saw it, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys. So anyway, Jaime is trying to escape the building, hoping that the Scarab will activate again, and he ends up meeting up with his family and getting back to the ship. He finds out that Jenny got separated from everybody while he was gone, and his sister is out there as well, so he's got to go back and get it. And then that's when the pep talk I mentioned earlier happens, where his mother talks to him and the Scarab. So then Jaime comes back down, the Scarab is able to power back up right before he has to save his sister, and then a fight ensues. It was a pretty fun fight. He takes down everybody, he meets up with his sister, he gets her back to the ship, and then Victoria has been taking Jenny away, but before Jaime can go back to the ship with the rest of his family, Carapax finds him and attacks him, and their final battle ensues. The two of them get into a confrontation. Jaime ends up overpowering Carapax for a moment, but then he gets cocky, he starts losing. Carapax ends up attacking his Uncle Rudy, who tries to distract him and stop Jaime from being killed, and Jaime, in a blind fit of rage, thinking that his uncle was just murdered, beats the ever-living hell out of Carapax and almost kills him before the Scarab stops him and tells him that they're not killers and that they shouldn't kill Carapax. So Jaime accepts this, he doesn't kill them. Meanwhile, while this is happening, Jenny is inside of a helicarrier with her aunt, who's telling her like, oh yeah, you know, we're gonna use this to reshape Cord Industries and blah blah blah, all this evil nonsense. And then Jenny ends up getting the device that has the code of the Blue Beetle scarab on it from her aunt. The helicarrier crashes, Jenny's fine, the aunt's okay, and unfortunately the pilot's died, so that's cool. And Jenny crushes the phone. Carapax shows up. Jaime ends up connecting with him because the scarab was able to see into Carapax's memories while the two of them were all connected. And you see that Cord Industries actually destroyed Carapax's life. Every horrible event that's happened to him being forced into the military, his mother dying, all of that was because of Victoria Cord, and he just didn't know that. Which, like, I didn't realize Carapax was, like, that much younger than Victoria Cord, but I guess he is. So now he remembers all of this. He decides to let Jaime go, and he ends up sacrificing himself and killing Victoria Cord. And now we get to this nice, wholesome ending of the movie where the entire family's together. Jenny Cord's like, hey, I'm gonna rebuild your guys' house, and she gives Jaime's Uncle Rudy a new truck because it got destroyed throughout the course of the movie. And the movie ends with this very fun moment where Jaime and Jenny are having like a romantic moment, and then he flies her off into the sunset with his Blue Beetle suit. And there's this like really funny moment where Kajita ends up telling Jaime that like while he's really close to Jenny, that like blood is flowing to his lower region. He's just like, we don't need to talk about that. Let's just not. And then Jenny's just like, what's it saying? He's like, no, it's not saying anything. Let's not worry about that. So all in all, I really did like Blue Beetle. It's a fun movie. There is a stinger post-credit scene where you find out that Ted Cord, Jenny's dad, is actually still alive. And I don't know if they're going to be using this movie in the future because James Gunn has said that he wants to keep Zolo on board as Blue Beetle. However, this movie is still slated as being part of the DCEU instead of James Gunn's DCU, so I don't know if they're going to keep this movie in it. They honestly can, because there isn't anything in the movie that indicates it as being in the DCEU. Like, they mention Superman and Batman existing in the universe, but we never see like an image of Ben Affleck's Batman or like a Batarang that he used or Henry Cavill's Superman. We never physically see them. And as of right now, James Gunn obviously plans to have both Batman and Superman in his DCU with the Superman Legacy movie and the Brave and the Bold movie that are planning to come out in the future of the next few years. So I think that if they want to, they could easily finagle this movie to be in the DCU if they want, but I don't know what his plan is. He might not want this movie in there because there's different things he wants to do with the character of Blue Beetle, but you know, if he does decide to keep it, I'm totally down to see a Blue Beetle 2 where Jaime has to go and save Ted Cord and maybe has to deal with the Reach invasion, because that'd be dope. The Reach are the alien life forms that like the Scarabs are. It's a long story that we don't really need to address right here. But nevertheless, I'd be totally down with that. I would like to see a Blue Beetle 2 or a Blue Beetle reboot inside the DCU, because I really like Zolo and I think he did a good performance here. But yeah, so that's all I really have to say about Blue Beetle. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTuber nonsense. Follow me on Twitter or X, whatever people call it now. And remember, folks, you're innocent until proven villainous, and I will catch you in the next one.